Rain hammered the windshield of Nathan's cab like it was trying to bury the city alive. He pulled into a shadowy alley in downtown Cleveland, engine rumbling, shoulders sagging. After 14 hours behind the wheel, his back screamed and his eyes burned like they'd been rubbed with sand. Nathan, 44, ran a hand through his graying stubble, the quiet in the cab heavy, broken only by the soft tick of the dashboard clock. 12:43 a.m. No radio, no chatter, just the weight of another long night. He reached for the key, ready to call it quits, when the radio crackled. Unit 12, priority pickup. The dispatcher's voice chirped, to Perky for the hour. 118 West Maple Drive. No destination given. Note says, get here fast, you in. Nathan sighed. Maple Drive meant Ridgeview Estates gated mansions, silent streets, not his usual beat of dive bars and bus stops. What's the deal? He asked, rubbing his temple. Female, mid-30s, sounds shaky. That's all I got, the dispatcher said, her tone tightening. You want it? He closed his eyes. His bed was calling, but something in her voice tugged at him. Yeah, I'll take it, he said. On my way. 10 minutes later, Nathan's tires crunched up a winding driveway to a mansion looming in the dark. Rain poured, pooling like ink around his wheels. He killed the engine, stepped into the storm, and jogged to the door, soaked in seconds. No umbrella, no cover, just water seeping into his bones. He rang the bell. Nothing. He rang again. Finally, the door creaked open. She stood there, barefoot, blonde hair plastered to her face, a damp silk robe clinging to her trembling frame. Her eyes were red, her cheeks blotchy, like she'd been crying 4 hours. Are you Nathan? She asked, voice raw. He nodded, water dripping from his cap. Taxi service. You called for a ride. She clutched the door frame, not moving. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears spilling. I don't want to go anywhere. I can't be alone tonight. Please, can you stay? Her voice broke, desperate, like she was holding onto the edge of a cliff. Nathan froze, rain trickling down his neck, his shirt sticking to his skin. This wasn't his job. He didn't know her, and she didn't know him. But her eyes shallow, scared, achingly alone hit something deep in him. He'd seen that look before, in his own reflection, years ago. I don't have anything to give you, she added, pleading. I just don't know what to do. He exhaled, long and slow, the kind of breath you let out when you're stepping into the unknown. Okay, he said quietly. I'll stay. Her shoulders slumped with relief. She stepped back, opening the door wider. Thank you, she murmured. Nathan slipped off his soggy shoes, leaving them by the door. She glanced at them, then at him, a faint warmth flickering in her eyes. Living room, kitchen, wherever, she said. I just need to know someone's here. He nodded, his voice low. That's fine. She turned, disappearing down a dark hallway. Nathan stood in the foyer, dripping, the door shutting behind him. The rain roared outside, but inside, something shifted. This wasn't just another fair. Something was starting, and he felt it in his gut. The house was stunning but lifeless. Polished hardwood gleamed under chandeliers that hung like ghosts. The walls held art that looked bought, not loved, and the air was too still, like the place hadn't been lived in 4 years. Nathan moved carefully, his steps echoing, and found her in the living room, curled on a white couch. Clutching a pillow was all she had left. Her robe slipped off one shoulder, her face pale in the dim light. You don't have to talk, she whispered. I just couldn't take the silence anymore. Nathan nodded, draping his wet jacket over a chair. He wandered to the kitchen. Its marble counter spotless, but cold. After rummaging, he found mugs, boiled water, a made mint tea, the steam curling into the air. He set a cup beside her. She glanced up, her eyes sunken, shadowed. Thank you, she murmured, barely audible. He sank into an armchair across from her, cradling his own mug. Minutes ticked by, the rain drumming the windows. Then, her voice, fragile as glass, broke the quiet. His name was Evan, she said. Nathan looked at her, waiting. My husband. He died 3 months ago. Car crash. They said it was quick, but I keep imagining him calling me before it happened. Why do I do that? She laughed, bitter, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Our daughter, Sophie, she's been crying every night, like she feels it too. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time. Every cry rips me open. It's not just the sound, it's what it means. Like I'm failing her. She paused, voice trembling. I'm starting to be afraid of her. My own kid. Can you believe that? Nathan shook his head, his voice soft but steady. I don't think you're afraid of her. I think you're afraid of what you're feeling. Her eyes snapped to his, startled. I've been there, he added. Different story, same kind of quiet. A faint cry echoed from the hall. Both froze. Sophie's whimpers grew louder, sharp in the stillness. The woman Athens still didn't know her name stood, then stopped, her face crumpling with shame. She always wakes now, she said. I try, but sometimes I just sit by her door, waiting for it to stop. Then I hate myself for it. Nathan stood, brushing past her, his hand grazing her shoulder at pity. Just a steady presence. I got this, he said. He followed the cries to a nursery, soft blue walls, a crib, a mobile of clouds. Sophie, a toddler with damp curls, sobbed, her tiny fists clenched. Nathan knelt by the crib. Hey, little one, he whispered, his voice low, warm. She blinked through tears, hiccuping. He reached in, slow and gentle, and lifted her. She didn't resist, curling into his chest as he rocked her, humming an old tune from a life he'd buried. Her cries softened, then stopped. The woman stood in the doorway, hand over her mouth, watching a stranger cradle her daughter like she was his own. You're good with her, she whispered. Nathan kept his eyes on Sophie, brushing a curl from her cheek. I used to be a dad, he said, voice barely above a whisper. She stepped closer, hesitant, sitting on a stool by the crib. Her name was Mia, he continued. Loved trains and jelly sandwiches. Had this laugh like a bell ringing. She got sick at 3. Rare blood disorder. We fought for a year hospitals, specialists, knew working doubles to pay for it. He paused, his voice catching. She didn't make it. Died just before her 4th birthday. My wife left after. Said the house felt like a graveyard. I didn't blame her, but I stayed. Couldn't let go of the quiet. He looked at Sophie, now asleep in his arms. Sometimes I still hear Mia calling me. Wakes me up. And it's just nothing. The woman's hand went to her chest, her eyes glistening. That's what it feels like, she whispered. Like the pain's eating you alive. Nathan met her gaze, to strangers bound by the same kind of loss. You're not alone in it, he said. That's the thing about grief, it tricks you into thinking you are. The nursery was dim, the only light filtering through a crack in the curtains, casting soft shadows across the blue walls. Nathan sat in the rocking chair. Sophie still nestled against his chest, her breathing deep and even. Her tiny hand clutched his shirt, a fragile anchor in the quiet. Across from him, the woman, her name still a mystery, sits on the low stool, her knees drawn up, her robe slipping further off her shoulder. She watched him, her eyes no longer hollow, but searching, like she was seeing him for the first time. You said her name was Mia, she said, her voice soft, careful, like she was stepping onto thin ice. What was she like? Nathan's gaze stayed on Sophie, his thumb brushing her curls. She was a firecracker, always running, always talking, loved making up stories about her toy trains like they were on secret missions. She'd make me play the bad guy, chasing them with a paper towel roll. He smiled, faint but real. She hated bedtime. I'd sing her that same lullaby, and she'd pretend to sleep just to get me to stop. The woman's lips curved, a tear slipping down her cheek. Sophie's like that too. She fights sleep like it's the enemy. Evan used to, her voice faltered, and she looked away, swallowing hard. He'd make up silly songs to get her to close her eyes. I can't do it like he did. Nathan nodded, the silence between them heavy, but not oppressive. You don't have to be him, he said. You just have to be there. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve, her breath shaky. I don't know how. I look at her, and I see him. His eyes, his smile. It's like losing him all over again, every day. And I'm so tired, Nathan. I'm tired of being afraid I'm not enough. He looked at her then, really looked. Her pain was raw, but so was her strength, even if she couldn't see it. You called me tonight, he said. That's not nothing. You reached out when you could have stayed in the dark. That's more than a lot of people do. Her eyes met his, glistening but steady. Why did you stay? She asked. You could have left. Most people would have. Nathan's jaw tightened, his gaze dropping to Sophie. Because I know what alone feels like. I've spent years in it. When you called, it wasn't just you asking for help. It was me remembering what it's like to need someone and not know how to say it. A soft whimper broke the moment. Sophie stirred, her face scrunching, and the woman tensed, her hands gripping the edge of the stool. Nathan rocked gently, humming again, and Sophie settled, her breathing evening out. The woman exhaled, her shoulders loosening. You make it look easy, she said, almost a whisper. It's not, he said, but it's familiar. She nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm Lauren, by the way, she said, her voice small but firm, like she was reclaiming something. I should have said that earlier. Nathan, he replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Nice to meet you, Lauren. They sat there, the nursery's quiet wrapping around them like a blanket. Lauren's eyes drifted to Sophie, then back to Nathan. You don't talk like a cab driver, she said. Not accusing, just curious. Like you've thought about this stuff, grief, pain more than most. He shrugged, careful not to jostle Sophie. Driving gives you a lot of time to think. People talk in my cab, strangers, drunks, folks running from something. You hear enough stories. You start seeing patterns. Loss is the loudest one. Lauren leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. What do you do with it? The loss, I mean. How do you keep going when it feels like it's swallowing you? Nathan's throat tightened. You don't fight it, he said. You let it sit with you, like a passenger. Some days, it's quiet. Some days, it screams. But you keep driving, because stopping means it wins. He paused, his voice softer. And sometimes, you let someone else take the wheel for a bit. Her lips trembled, and she pressed her hands to her face, trying to hold it together. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. I keep thinking if I was stronger, I could love Sophie the way she needs. But I'm drowning, and I'm scared I'll pull her under with me. Grief's a liar, Nathan said, his voice calm but firm. It tells you you're failing when you're just surviving. You love her, that's why it hurts so much. Don't let shame tell you different. Lauren's breath hitched, and she nodded, tears spilling again. The silence returned, softer now, like the rain outside had eased into a gentle patter. Sophie stirred, nuzzling closer to Nathan's chest, and Lauren watched, her expression shifting less fear, more wonder. You must have been a great dad, she said, her voice barely audible. Nathan's eyes softened, but his face stayed still. I tried to be, he said. Still do, in my own way. Without thinking, Lauren reached out, her fingers brushing his hand where it rested on Sophie's back. It wasn't romantic, wasn't even comforting, just a quiet acknowledgement. I see you. Their hands lingered, barely touching, to people tethered by pain, but no longer crushed by it. They moved to the kitchen, the warmest room in the house, its single light casting a glow over the tiled counters. A toddler's sippy cup sat beside a coffee maker, a dish towel slung crookily over the oven handle, small signs of life in a house that felt too big. Nathan set Sophie in a high chair, where she dozed, her head lolling. He boiled water for fresh tea, his jacket still dripping on a chair. Lauren sat at the table, knees tucked up, her hair curling from the damp. He slid a mug across to her and took the seat opposite, the quiet between them easy now, like they'd known each other longer than a few hours. Lauren wrapped her hands around the mug, the warmth seeping into her fingers. I forgot how good this feels, she said, taking a sip, her eyes closing briefly. Nathan sipped his own, watching her. They didn't talk about jobs or hometowns, those things felt irrelevant. They were just a people, broken in their own ways, finding something solid in the chaos. After a while, Lauren spoke, her voice low, like she was afraid to wake the ghosts. I thought I'd be an amazing mom, she said. I read every book, took classes, Picked out nursery colours before we even knew Sophie's gender. She smiled faintly. Pale yellow. Supposed to be soothing. Doesn't feel soothing now. Nathan leaned back, his mug warm in his hands. What happened after Evan died? Her smile faded. I held it together at first. Fed her. Changed her. Smiled for pictures. But her cries got louder. And I got darker. One night, I stood outside her room, too scared to go in. I didn't trust myself to be what she needed. She looked at him, eyes shimmering. How do you live with that kind of fear? You don't, Nathan said, his voice steady. You face it. You're not a bad mom, Lauren. You're just carrying too much, and nobody's meant to do that alone. A soft cry came from the high chair. Lauren stiffened, her hands tightening around the mug. Nathan stood, brushing her arm lightly. I've got her, he said. He lifted Sophie, rocking her gently, humming that same lullaby. Her cries faded, her head resting on his shoulder. Lauren watched, tears rolling down her cheeks not loud. Not dramatic, just raw. She wasn't crying from shame. She was crying because someone had shown her it was possible to answer her daughter's needs without breaking. You don't have to do this alone, Nathan said, glancing at her. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Lauren nodded, her face softening, the weight of the night lifting just enough to let her breathe. The kitchen was still, the tea long cold, the storm outside reduced to a soft drizzle. The clock ticked past 3 a.m., but time felt irrelevant. Nathan sat in a wooden chair, Sophie asleep against his chest, her tiny breath steady, her hand curled into his shirt. Lauren lay on the love seat nearby, her head tilted on a throw pillow, her breathing deep and calm. She'd slipped into sleep, her face no longer taut with fear, but soft, peaceful. Nathan hadn't moved in an hour, careful not to disturb the fragile quiet. He watched them both, mother and daughter, feeling something he hadn't in years, a sense of purpose. He adjusted the blanket over Sophie, his movements slow, deliberate. The chair creaked, and he spoke, barely a whisper, not to wake her, but to let something inside him breathe. There was this little girl, he said, his voice low, who thought the stars were chasing her car at night. She'd point out the window and yell, "Daddy, they're following us." He smiled, faint but warm. Mia loved trains and splashing in puddles. She'd make up stories about them, like they were off to save the world. His voice softened, rocking Sophie gently. One night, she got sick. Just a fever, I thought. I held her, told her, "Daddy's got you." She called me her star, said I'd always find her. His throat caught, a tear slipping down his cheek. I didn't know it was the last time. I worked so much, thought I had years to make it right. He brushed Sophie's hair, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, Mia. Sorry I wasn't there more. But tonight, holding this little one, I felt you again. Like you sent me here to help someone else. Sophie nuzzled closer, and Nathan kissed her forehead, his eyes closing. Lauren stirred, but didn't wake, her breath even, her presence grounding the room. The moment felt sacred, like it had been waiting years to unfold. Nathan didn't know what morning would bring, whether Lauren would thank him and wave goodbye, or if they'd tiptoe around questions neither was ready for. But for now, it was enough. This room, this peace, this night where pain met healing. For the first time in years, Nathan didn't feel like he was driving through the dark alone. The sky was still grey when he stood, careful not to jostle Sophie. He carried her to the nursery, the door creaking as he stepped inside. The soft blue walls glowed faintly in the pre-dawn light. He lowered Sophie into her crib, her head settling on a stuffed elephant. She sighed, curling up, and he whispered, "Sleep tight, little star." He lingered, watching her breathe, then turned back to the living room. Lauren hadn't moved, her hair falling across her cheek, her robe slipping to reveal a bare shoulder. Nathan knelt beside her, his eyes tracing her face cam, resting, free of the weight she'd carried. He pulled a blanket from the couch and draped it over her. Then, in a quiet instinct, brushed the stray hair behind her ear. She didn't stir. He stayed there a moment, then stood, moving to the kitchen. He found a notepad by the fridge, tucked beside a stack of bills, and a half-burned candle. Tearing off a sheet, He wrote, his pen slow and deliberate. "You're not failing. You're just human. So was I. Anne." He folded the note, left it by her cold teacup, and slipped on his shoes. With a final glance at the quiet house, he stepped into the misty morning, the door closing softly behind him. The sun woke Lauren, its light creeping through the curtains. She blinked, disoriented, then felt a weight against her chest. Sophie was curled in her arms, her small body warm, her breathing deep. Lauren froze, her heart catching. She hadn't held her daughter like this in weeks, not since grief had built a wall between them. Yet here they were, tangled together, whole. Her hands trembled as she wrapped them around Sophie, pulling her close, tears welling not from fear, but from a quiet, overwhelming relief. Her eyes caught a folded note on the table. She reached for it, careful not to wake Sophie, and unfolded it. "You're not failing. You're just human. So was I, Anne." The words sank into her, warm and steady, like a hand pulling her from deep water. She pressed the note to her chest, looking at Sophie's peaceful face. "Thank you," she whispered, to Sophie, to Nathan, to the night that had changed everything. The days that followed weren't easy, but they were different. Lauren woke before Sophie's cries, not with panic, but with a quiet resolve. She started journaling, even if just a line. "Today, I smiled at her." She cooked simple meal, pancakes, soup, nothing fancy, but she ate. She booked a therapist, and when asked what had changed, she said, "A stranger showed me I wasn't alone." Sophie changed too. Her laughs grew louder, her sleep steadier. She reached for Lauren with open arms, no longer sensing the distance that had once lingered. But Lauren couldn't stop thinking about Nathan's man who'd held her daughter like she was his own, who'd spoken of loss with raw honesty, who'd left a note that felt like a lifeline. She kept it in her wallet, reading it on hard days. "You're not failing. You're just human." She had to find him. She called the taxi company, hitting walls of privacy policy until persistence paid off. A dispatcher relented. "There's a guy, Nathan, quiet, drives nights, green Crown Vic, old school." It was enough. Lauren searched gas stations, downtown lots, anywhere cabs gathered. Days passed, then a week. One chilly afternoon, with Sophie bundled in her car seat, Lauren drove to a church lot in the industrial district, where volunteers served meals to the unhoused. There it waited, green Crown Vic, trunk open, Nathan handing out sandwiches in a worn jacket. His hair was longer, but it was him. Lauren's heart raced as she stepped out, Sophie waving from the car. Their eyes met, and Nathan froze, a paper bag in his hand. "I looked for you," Lauren said, her voice shaky. He blinked, a soft smile breaking through. "You found me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I wasn't sure I would." Nathan glanced at Sophie, his smile widening. "I wasn't sure I wanted to be found," he admitted, his voice low. Lauren stepped closer. "That night, I was lost. You didn't fix me, but you showed me I could breathe again. I'm not asking you to stay the night this time. I'm asking you to be part of this, whatever it becomes. The hard days, the good ones, all of it." Nathan looked at her, really looked, seeing the strength beneath her storm. He nodded, his voice steady. "I'd like that." A year later, the mansion was unrecognizable in structure, but in spirit. Lauren had turned it into the Sunrise Haven Foundation, a non-profit for mothers battling postpartum depression and grief. The rooms buzzed with counselors, volunteers, and women who, like Lauren, had once felt broken. She greeted each one with warmth, saying, "I've been there," and meaning it. Nathan didn't ask to join, but when Lauren needed drivers for emergency pickups, therapy visits, hospital runs, showed up, his Crown Vic gleaming. He wasn't just a driver, he was a steady presence, gentle with every mom and kid who climbed into his cab. They called him Mr. a name that carried trust. They didn't rush into love or slap labels on what they had. They chose each other daily, through small moments, coffee in the kitchen, Sophie's giggles, quiet nights planning the foundation's next steps. But on the foundation's first anniversary, Nathan made a choice that changed everything. The mansion's garden glowed with string lights, tables laden with food made by the mothers they'd helped. Sophie, now 3, darted around in a daisy crown, handing out cookies. Lauren wore a soft white dress, her hair loose. Nathan had been quiet all night, not nervous, just ready. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in pinks and oranges, a volunteer called him to the stage. Nathan stepped up, holding a small note, his hands steady. "When I met Lauren," he said, looking at her, "she was holding on by a thread. I thought I was helping her, but she saved me." He glanced at Sophie, grinning in the grass. Both of them did. He folded the note, his voice clear. "I had a daughter once, and I thought that part of my life was gone. But one rainy night, a call for help showed me it wasn't over, it was waiting." He stepped down, walked to Lauren, and knelt. The crowd gasped. "You gave me a home when I was lost," he said, pulling out a ring with a small sapphire. "Lauren, will you be my home for the rest of my life?" Tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes," Sophie squealed, tackling them both. The crowd cheered, and under the jasmine-wrapped trellis, there stood 3 people, no longer pieces, but a family. Some stories start in the dark, with a cry no one hears. But sometimes, a stranger steps into the rain, and everything shifts. Lauren and Nathan didn't need saving, they needed each other. Together, they built a life, a foundation, a home worth coming back to.